I had always been fascinated by abandoned places. There was something about them, silent, forgotten, yet full of untold stories. It wasn't about vandalism or decay, but about the beauty in their disrepair, the mystery of what had been and what was lost. So, when the idea struck me, living in one for a month, to understand the essence of solitude and survival in a forgotten world, it seemed like the perfect experiment. Little did I know how deeply it would affect me. The building I chose was an old industrial complex on the outskirts of the city, once a thriving factory, now left to rot. Graffiti covered its brick walls. Broken windows stared out like hollow eyes, and the air inside was thick with the scent of mildew and dust. But there was something compelling about it, something that made me feel like it was waiting for me. I arrived on the first day, my bag filled with essentials, a sleeping bag, a few cans of food, a flashlight, and a couple of old books. The plan was simple. Live there for 30 days, keep a journal, and experience what it was like to live without the comforts of modern life. The building itself would be my companion, a towering skeleton of the past, full of echoes and silence. As I entered through the rusted gates, the heavy door creaked on its hinges. My breath caught as I stepped inside. The first thing that struck me was the quiet, a stillness that seemed to envelop the entire place. There was no hum of electricity, no sound of the outside world, just a thick silence. I wandered through the halls, feeling the cold concrete beneath my boots, until I found a small corner room on the second floor. It seemed cozy enough, tucked away from the open spaces, with a window that let in a small trickle of light. I set up my space and settled in for the night. As I lay on the cold floor, surrounded by darkness, I felt a strange sense of freedom. There were no rules here, no deadlines, no distractions. It was just me and the building. But that feeling quickly turned to unease as the night wore on. The air was thick, heavy, as if the walls themselves were holding their breath. My mind wandered to the stories I'd heard about these places, the rumors of people who'd lived in abandoned buildings, only to come out with pieces of their sanity broken. I shook off the thought and fell into an uneasy sleep, my mind swirling with the possibilities of what the next 30 days would bring. The first few days passed in a blur of quiet monotony. I spent my time exploring the building, getting familiar with its many rooms and passages. Some parts of the place were barely standing, the floors sagging, the walls crumbling. But there were also spots of surprising beauty, sunlight streaming through broken windows, the soft rustling of leaves in the breeze that slipped in through cracks in the walls. There was a strange contrast between decay and renewal, the past and the present. I kept myself busy, reading, journaling, sketching the building's haunting features. I would take long walks around the grounds, trying to keep myself grounded, knowing that the more I let the silence consume me, the more I would feel its weight. The solitude was both peaceful and unsettling. There were no people here, no voices, only the occasional creak of wood or the distant call of a bird. By day 5, the loneliness began to settle in like a thick fog. I didn't expect to miss human interaction as much as I did. The silence was overwhelming, and the absence of conversation made me realize how much I had relied on others to keep my thoughts from spiraling. When I spoke aloud, the sound of my own voice felt foreign, like an interruption in the stillness. At night, I would hear the building shift and groan, and it was almost as if the structure itself was alive, breathing, moving, waiting. But even in this unsettling quiet, I found small joys. The simple act of making my own food felt like a victory. I had to rely on my instincts, finding water from a nearby stream, boiling it over a small fire, eating the bare minimum to survive. There was a rawness to it, an honesty that I had never experienced before. As the days passed, I began to feel a shift inside myself. At first, it was subtle, small moments where I felt more in tune with the building, more attuned to my surroundings. But soon, I realized that the building was beginning to change me in ways I hadn't anticipated. The silence wasn't just external. It started to seep into my thoughts, shaping the way I saw the world. Without the noise of daily life, my mind became clearer, sharper. I began to reflect on things I hadn't thought about in years. Old relationships, regrets, decisions that had shaped my life. With no distractions, there was nothing left to do but confront the past. On the seventh night, I was sitting by a fire I had made in a rusted metal barrel when I heard a sound. At first, I thought it was my imagination, the wind carrying strange noises through the building. But then I heard it again, footsteps, faint but unmistakable. My heart raced as I grabbed the flashlight, scanning the room. There was no one there. I convinced myself it was just the building settling, the weight of years of abandonment causing it to creak and groan. But the sensation of being watched didn't fade. I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't alone in this place, even though I was the only one there. The building seemed to have its own presence, an energy that hummed just below the surface. It was as if it was waiting for me to uncover its secrets.